You know, I'm feeling a little bit nostalgic. I mean, if you take a look at myself, you might see that. I mean, Sparrow, Bionicle, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But as I get ready to finish college, my attempts at holding on to my childhood remain ever elusive. Though my first console was a hand-me-down from my brother, a Sega Mega Drive, from which the only game I retained is The Lion King, it was a PlayStation proper that introduced me to gaming. Yes, I was born in 97, but seeing as I wouldn't get a PS2 until August of 2006, the original PlayStation did well in serving my needs. It was the PlayStation that introduced me to most of the genres of games I like nowadays, and I like to think it saved me as a gamer. Nowadays, my old gaming collection lies forgotten, lost among several house moves, etc. But I've been trying to rebuild my collection. Some of the games I owned were, in fact, quite rare, and I wish I knew what they were worth because buying the likes of Tomba or Konoha on eBay is just not happening. But I have managed to acquire some games from my childhood, or other games that were at a good price. Most of the games I tried came through the form of demo discs. They came in black CDs, and I didn't. And those previews of games were always fun. There were so many of them. I eventually stopped collecting out of the discs because they came out like once a month. But through the demo discs, I experienced the likes of Oddworld, as Disney Hercules, Wookie Wook, um, the famous French character, Belgian, probably. Most of the games I saw in the demos I couldn't get, even if I had the money. It was the era where the PS2 dominated every sale, and PS games were relegated to a bin. I did manage to, at the time, get Hercules, a game I beat several times as a kid. On my Mega Drive, there were three kinds of games I like to play. The platforms, like Sonic and Knuckles and Lion King, the beat 'em ups with Golden Axe and Streets of Rage, the racing games like Super Hang-On, and though Super Mario 64 can be argued to be the first true 3D platformer, the jump from 2D to 3D was staggering to me. That started with Croc, Legend of the Goblins, that green crocodile, man. I'm not going to give you a history lesson over the character. And in fact, I didn't beat it more than once or twice in my life. But Croc, Legend of the Goblins was probably the first 3D platform I played. I made a review out of it, which I don't recommend watching since it was my first review. It was awful. But to put things simply, I remember getting it as a Christmas gift and opening it. The change in perspective was huge to my eyes and the levels which were big were jaw dropping, even if I kind of sucked at the game. Nowadays, the hover which makes start work of most levels, and I'm better at it. Crash Bandicoot 3 warped, and Spyro 3 would later join my list of 3D platformers played, and do I never get the true ending on Crash 3? I always loved getting back to it, just so nostalgic. Spyro 3, well, I got a horror ending on that game, which was good enough for me. Memories of weeks of summer doing it come to mind. I have a distinct memory of the level Icy Peak and how I liked moving the beams to melt the ice. It was a level I repeated dozens of times. Another game I remember playing from the era was 40 Wings. This was a late release in Europe, but it was quickly saved off in price since the PS2 came soon enough. I always thought it might be the dark atmosphere scared the ever-living Jews out of me, so I didn't try very hard to complete it. When a gaming store that no longer exists in about 2008, there were 3-4 PS1 games that were going for less than €5, and my father, ever grew so graciously, got me this one, and another copy of Beyblade, which I already had. But it was Rayman that was the crown of my collection. I must have played the game so much, I'm surprised the game didn't burst into flames. 121 bits was the standard for the version that had come out on the Dreamcast. Another great version, but what they managed to accomplish in 32 bits was just magical. This is the game I've never forgotten. Other 3D platforms that I played include Stuart Vito 2 and, well, when it wasn't 2D, it was 3D. When it wasn't 3D, it was 2D. And this was usually where Disney games shone. I was accustomed to high-quality games like The Lion King and Aladdin on the Sega Mega Drive, so I made sure to follow the games that came out based on the animated movies. Toward the way the era went 3D, but the ones I mean, I played the most were the 2D ones like Disney Hercules and Disney Tarzan, and I always loved how fluid that animation looked. Pixar games were also not too savvy. I mean, Bugs Life was okay. It had good music at least. I completed Monsters Inc. Scare Islands probably half a dozen times. But my favorite game based on their licenses was probably Toy Story 2. Oh, what to say? It's a quest-based platformer like Mario 64 and I freaking love it. It's pretty cool to see the world through the view of a tile, which reminds me of another game I had as a child. Stuart Video 2. About placing in a seemingly normal world as a tiny object or animal. Other kids had Gex, but Toy Story 2, along of course Rayman 2, were my version of that. And I can't mention Disney without mentioning Going Quackers, a title I have fond memories of, recently got again for the PS2. There was also Atlantis, which I played the demo disc of. It was one stage over and over again, and when I eventually got a version to play, it was the Game Boy Advance one, which wasn't very fun. But we are here to talk about the system. We're here to mention the PSX. To get probably my favorite game sprite-wise, Metal X, in due time. For now I can't help but mention Tomba, or Tombi as it was known here, Tombi. This game, it was the first game I ever played that was full in Portuguese, and the time I spent on it, I don't think I even reached the final boss, but my favorite thing to do in the game was simple and fun, collect butterflies. Yes, I'm not even joking. Jump on top of one and bam, got it! Sprite-wise, like I said, Metal Slug X was amazing. You could have never gotten this kind of details in 16-bit. And it was probably one of the best co-op games there was. This was when we weren't racing against the other players. We segues into my next section, racing games. Now, I recently distinct the first racing game I laid my eyes upon on the PlayStation, Ridge Racer Evolution, came in a demo disc, and I was mesmerized. But it only had one stage. I repeated that level over and over and over, getting better. But when I think PlayStation, I think racing, 3 games come to mind. Common McRae Rally, which I was never really very good at. 2.0 was the one my dad played. Revolt was awesome, and I mentioned our review about it. Then there was Crossing Racing, which we played 4 players, me and my friends with, using that boomerang thingy the PlayStation had. I did try my hand at racing games, but those never did capture my attention like Revolt and Crossing Racing and failing at Colin McRae Rally. And then there were the third-person games. I remember one of the first guys I ever looked up on the internet was for how to beat one of the stages on Mission Impossible. A game I recently got back and I questioned, how did I get very far in it? It's even harder than I remember. Either way, my progress in that game was cut short by a section with a wager grade. Another third game I played a lot was more of a platform. It was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. It was always fun to discover its secrets. I know I never played the first game much. The second one was one I remember fondly. Though I recently did play the first one. It's pretty much the same. I think it was the training sequence from Spider-Man that came in the disc, and though I never managed to play the game proper and beat it, I always had the final boss, which was a mixture of Doc Ock and a symbiote. I did have my copy somewhere. What I did recently get was the sequel, Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro, but then I got this PS4 version of Spider-Man, and I never went back. Fighting games I have had their 3D boots on the arcade and on the Sega Saturn, but it was the PlayStation that really sold me on the whole fighting game thing. I remember playing Tekken 2 quite often, and you know about Dragon Ball GT The Final Burst, a game that has aged very poorly. The Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat compilations, they were, Mortal Kombat Trilogy was great. I was very fortunate with the games I got for the system at the time. In fact, I can consider myself lucky because most of the games I got either in the bargain bin or just from gifts were good. It may be nostalgic classes, but I honestly think this was a system that was blessed with good games, even licensed ones. And I'm in a college dorm and my PlayStation is somewhere in my mom's house, and I can, of course, emulate them. But when I look at games that I remember, like a game I'm trying to speedrun and get the world record on, or Tom and Jerry in-house rap, another game I really love, and I still consider the best Tom and Jerry game. Or even, as serious as this sounds, or even Power Rangers. I never was a Power Rangers kid. I never really liked the game, liked it, so I never really watched it. But I remember going to a friend's house and they had Power Rangers and Yu-Gi-Oh, and that was how I was introduced to Yu-Gi-Oh. I mean, in time I would lose it all. Uh, but the PlayStation, the original PlayStation, PSX, the system I will keep going back for and rekindling my nostalgia for. I mean, I'm still looking at my Hot Wheels and my team is Mutant Ninja Turtles and my Dazzles, which were pretty much Pogs. I mean, yeah, I may finally be becoming an adult. I may finally be finishing college, university, whatever you want to call it, but this, I don't want to grow up in this. I don't want to lose my inner child.